engaged all around.
Halo 2. Back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chris Ritchie.
I'm Travis Winkler.
This is the Dust and Echoes podcast. Welcome
Yeah,
back.
we should really enunciate that. It's Dust and Echoes. Because
Not Dust and Echoes?
Looking back to the footage we recorded last time, it sounded like the name Dustin, then Echoes.
It could be that too. It could be Dust and Echoes. I like that. That could be my name.
But welcome back to the Dust and Echoes podcast. I actually am Chris Ritchie.
And I'm Travis Winkler. Gamer
extraordinaire. We're here today to talk a little bit about a game that we recently played called Halo 2.
It's a sequel to Halo 1 if you listen to our first one. This was groundbreaking. Evidently, Chris, it broke, biggest 24 hours in entertainment retail history as of 2004. It had 125 million in sales. I don't know how that stands up for nowadays, but it was a pretty big deal. And it started an era of people standing at the GameStop at 11 o'clock waiting for a midnight release, and I was one of them.
Yeah, I as the casual gamer of the duo, I don't get that a whole lot. I've never stood anywhere in line for a release of something. So what's that like?
It's like, I don't know, when you're a nerd that plays Halo in the basement, you don't really think there's that many people like you out there. But when I showed up, some of my brother's friends actually drove me. I don't even know if I was driving in 2004 yet. But we showed up, and there was a ton of people in Middlesboro, Kentucky, where the population isn't that big. And
what is the population there? About 10,000 or so?
I don't know. There was, I'm guessing there were probably 50 to 100 people there lined up at GameStop.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind. It was awesome. Everybody was talking about. I remember one guy. We were standing in line. One guy was like, "Needler," and all my friends were like, "Shut the f up."
They didn't like the Needler?
No, my friends didn't like anything that was a Covenant weapon.
I do find kind of a pattern coming up though in your Halo experience. It revolved a lot around having to depend on your brother to get introduced to the game. When you say the first one, it was because your brother's friend came over with an Xbox and played it, and now your brother and his friends were packing you over to GameStop.
Yeah, my Halo experience was, and so this kind of blends in Halo 2. So it was basically half of his friends and half of my friends, and we would get on System Link, which was a new feature with the Xbox. You could LAN or hook up your Xboxes with a hub and Ethernet cables, and then each up to 4 Xboxes. So each Xbox could hold 4 people. So 4, 4, 4, 4. You had 16 players, and we would do 8 versus 8 Halo every Friday. For what? It come out in 2001. We did that for like 3 years. Every Friday.
On the first Halo?
Yeah, the first Halo came out in 2001. Yeah. We did those System Link LAN parties almost every Friday until Halo 2 came out. And then Halo 2 killed it. Do you know why? Because it was Xbox Live. Yep. Yeah, the Halo 2 killed the LAN party because it had the Xbox Live feature. Which
I didn't have a lot of friends, and the ones I had in 2000. When did Halo 2 come out, or Halo in 2001 when the first one came out? There weren't any LAN parties in Feisty, Kentucky.
I figured you were in college or something like that by then.
It's not even an incorporated city. Oh yeah, I was in Lexington, Kentucky by then. at
Yeah,
college
there
in
was no.
2001.
There were
But
people having LAN parties at UK or wherever
not
you went.
people I knew. Not people I
Oh,
knew.
you
I'm
too
sure at the
cool, huh?
University of Kentucky there were all kinds of. Oh no, I was a rank below those people that were in the basement doing the LAN parties. Absolutely.
I remember a few.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, but I did get a copy of Halo 2, not a legal copy, because I had a modded Xbox, if you remember those. And I knew a guy who was recording bootleg copies of games, and he had Halo 2, and I'd played Halo 1
Was
at
that
point, so I
before
was
or
like,
after
give
the
me that.
release?
Oh, it was before. Or after, I'm sorry. It was well after. I was actually, I was out of college.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was actually going to tell you, we went to a Halo 1 tournament, I think maybe September of 2004, and we all played at Halo 1. We got pretty far, but we got beat out because the guy that got us in the tournament wasn't really that good. But anyways, after we got beat out, we went to the lobby of the little rec center that we were playing Halo in. And this guy was playing Halo 2, and it was in September. The game came out officially in November, but there was a big debacle. I think hackers or modders or whatever downloaded Halo, the French version of Halo 2, and had it before it actually released. So we was seeing him running around with the sword and stuff, and it blew my mind back then.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'd say so.
You were one of them.
I didn't have the French version.
You had a modded Xbox, though.
I did have a modded Xbox.
Shame. Shame.
Yeah, I do feel bad about it now, but it's been 16 years or so.
Well, yeah, if you would have gone on Xbox Live with a modded Xbox, it would have just instantly been banned.
Yeah, I never got on Xbox Live until 360, but
Right.
But the point of today's episode of the podcast, though, as we alluded to, we're going to be talking about Halo 2.
Exactly.
And we played it very recently on co-op mode. Mm-hmm. We didn't get to play Legendary like the first one, though.
No. Before we get into that, hold that Legendary thought. Before we get into that, since we're still talking about the Halo 2 release, there's some more things I want to talk to you about. Okay. So, they had an E3 trailer. The Halo 2 E3 trailer. Do you know what I'm talking about on that?
Yeah. And I know the story. I think you're getting ready to tell on this also.
It's they changed it a bunch. Master Chief lands there and he flies through the streets on a ghost, and maybe we can link some footage or something of this E3 trailer. But that didn't actually end up being put in the game. Like, a lot of it was scrapped. It was really what do you call it when it's created to look like random events, but it's all just rehearsed? I don't know. It was a really choreographed trailer.
Choreographed,
yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know. That might be the start of some of the drama. And another thing, Chris, I love bees. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You love bees? No, I don't think I do.
I love bees.com. It was months before Halo 2 released, and somehow, I forget, because the internet was still kind of new back in 2004. Wasn't used to using it very much, but ilovebees.com was, I think Bungie released a website called that, and it had all these little secret links. It was really a web page that was made by this beekeeper, this fictional beekeeper. But then you would go through the website and you would find some of these documents and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe we can show some of that on the screen. But if you go to Halopedia, Axon Clips, I'll link it. We'll put it in the doobly-doo blog.
Show notes.
And it has all of these audio files. And you would go through ilovebees.com and you would find all these audio files. And if you put them all together, and you wouldn't find them chronological, but if you put them all together, it was a audio drama that was a prelude to Halo 2. And it kind of was talking about it was like these kids on Earth, and I don't know if you know much about the Halo lore, but how they made Spartans. They would kidnap a kid, like, from their house while they're sleeping, and then they would leave a clone of the kid behind. And the clone would die like 3 months later over clone sickness, and they would just think their kid died of natural causes, but then they would have kept the actual kid. So that's how they made Spartans.
And this particular story you're talking about, when lore, we'll come back to some of that again when we reach Halo Reach.
But I remember scouring that I Love B site. It was super interesting. And if you go to halopedia.org, you can find that, or just
okay, yeah, I have to check it out.
Type in Halopedia.
Yeah, but there was a whole lot of story to Halo 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned with the E3 trailer that had a lot of footage that never showed up in the game. That like the story of Halo 2 is almost as interesting as playing the game.
Oh, absolutely, the story is great.
Apparently Bungie wanted to put a whole lot of stuff in it, and they were running out of time. They were hitting a deadline. There was a whole lot of stuff they just had to cut out.
And I wish they had the time to put it all in, but I remember it was just a bunch of pressure to get that game out, and like I said, they destroyed all the records coming up to it. So you can't really say they did bad. And I think maybe that's just part of being an artist, or being like, I don't know, Bungie they hit it so big with Halo 1 that I don't think any set amount of time would have been enough for these guys to put everything they want into it. So it had to stop at some point.
Yeah, but even so, the game was fun. It's a fun game, obviously, because we're talking about it. We're talking about
it has its flaws compared to its predecessor, and I think that's worth discussing.
Oh yeah, 100%. It is not Halo 1, but because it came out right after, and it's the direct sequel, we'll be doing a lot of comparisons to it, I think, though, during this conversation.
So what do you want to do on this? Do you want to go level by level like we did with the first podcast, or do you want to just talk overall?
I'd just like to kind of talk overall on this one, because there's a lot of things that happen in Halo 2 that I think happen in a lot of the levels that we can just kind of apply to all of them.
So first of all, if you have the Master Chief Collection, recently they redid Halo 2. They have a Halo 2 Anniversary Edition where they redid all the graphics just like they did Halo 1. And I don't know if you've seen our last episode, but we used the anniversary graphics on that for Halo 1. And the anniversary
graphics for Halo 2 look really good.
Yeah, and they redid the cinematic graphics as well. And the cinematics of Halo 2 are, they're the best. I love it. They're probably my favorite ones in the whole series.
And this is where we were talking about yesterday. Gameplay in Halo 2, it's kind of so-so. Story in Halo 2, it's fantastic. And those cinematics play, to me, a big part in it, those remastered cinematics, because they look absolutely fantastic.
Right. Let me just think here. See, that's why I like to go through episode by episode, because it kind of puts me on track, and I don't really know what I want to talk about.
Let's just start to talk about the kind of summarize the story up to this point.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Master Chief takes off in his a longsword at the end of Halo 1. He blows up, or he detonates the Pillar of Autumn that crash landed into the first Halo, and he escapes with Cortana in hand. Blows up all
Cortana is I'm glad we're getting this out early, because we didn't mention it for a while the first time. But she's a very all-important artificial intelligence construct. Who basically guides Master Chief through the entirety of the series.
Absolutely. She's super intelligent. She has all the information there ever was.
And in Halo, Master Chief likes her just a little bit.
Does he?
It's like his girlfriend.
Yeah.
Which is it's kind of an interesting dynamic.
You can definitely tell that he cares for this piece of technology as more than a friend. I don't. It's not like he's hitting on her or anything, because he only says like 3 words, but you can tell that they have a strong relationship. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And which just increases the dynamic between the main characters.
So he blows up the Pillar of Autumn, which is a military spaceship, and like you said, it destroys the first Halo ring, which is a weapon installation to destroy an alien species. So we basically pick up right where that leaves off.
Yep.
In Halo 2, we pick it up, and the Master Chief is accepting some awards.
Yeah, they're at an award ceremony. They're like, "Yay, you did it! You killed a bunch of coveys." You told me there'd be no cameras. You get to hear that from Master Chief. Sergeant Johnson is back. I don't know if
Johnson says, "You told me you'd dress up."
I I don't know if you've seen the legendary. I know you have, Chris, but I don't know if you guys have seen the legendary ending of Halo 1. But Sergeant Johnson is there as the ring is exploding, and he's with an elite, and he says, "Come here, baby, hold me." And it's like a little
Yeah.
secret cinematic where Sergeant Johnson and an elite embrace as the ring explodes. So somehow he survived that.
And the cool thing about Halo 2 also is the story-wise, it introduces a new character called the Arbiter, who was basically the commanding officer of the Elites and the Covenant, which is the bad guys in the first Halo. And there's this dichotomy going on between here's Master Chief and the winning side, and here's the Covenant and the losing side, and kind of the fallout for the Arbiter after that. He's definitely not getting pinned in a medal ceremony like the Master Chief is.
And this really fleshes out the Covenant as an actual thing instead of just being the bad guys. The Covenant is a really fleshed out, lore rich race. Not really. It's a bunch of different alien races that have come together to go on the great journey, and they're led by what's called the Prophets. It's like these 3-looking squid dudes in floaty chairs. They're real ominous, and they are pretty much scolding the Arbiter for losing his mission of protecting the Halo ring and letting Master Chief get away, of course. So they strip him of all his armor. They brand him, and you get to see the brutes. The brutes are introduced. Tartarus, the brute chieftain, who's like this big monkey dude, and takes a big branding iron and brands the Arbiter's chest as a mark of his never forget his failure.
It's kind of the scarlet letter of the Covenant, I guess.
Yeah. And then then Prophets take him in the back, and they're like, "We're not going to kill you like everybody wants. We're going to send you on a bunch of suicide missions instead. So become the Arbiter." And then it stops there for a second. Meanwhile, the Covenant find Earth somehow. How did they do that? There's probably like a lore book that tells you how, but that's not really explained in the games. Do you know how they found Earth? Because wasn't that
I do not know.
Wasn't that the point of protecting Cortana in Halo 1 was so they didn't find Earth? You know? Anyways, they found it. They're here.
They're here, yeah.
And the Prophet of Regret, one of the squid guys I was telling you about, is leading the charge with several big Covenant cruisers, and they latch on to this big space station that Master Chief's having his award ceremony on, and he needs a weapon.
And that kicks off the game. Absolutely.
Yep.
It's a great introduction to a game, I might add.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we didn't really get that in Halo 1. It gives you like Halo 1 gave you like a short scene with Captain Keyes and Cortana, and then like you were in there. It's like, oh, we're under attack. Let's go.
Yeah, so Halo 2 really fleshes out that story.
It does a lot of world building. I really like that.
Building. Yep.
I really like that from Halo 2. So
this also introduces, Travis, when you talk about the kind of the game mechanics of it. In the first level, after the Chief gets a gun, you go a couple of corners and you can pick up another gun and start dual wielding.
Yeah,
which is something you definitely couldn't do in the first one. Which is I didn't care a whole lot for the dual wielding. It seemed like it was kind of clunky for me. I'd rather just have the one.
I did not care much for dual wielding, but I remember back in 2004, I did care for it. I thought it was the shit. I thought it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different. I remember there is such a difference between normal mode and heroic mode. And maybe we should talk about that for a second, because we did not go through Legendary, guys. Our whole point of going through co-op was to do them all in Legendary. When we got the Halo 2 Legendary, it was not fair.
Yeah, we didn't realize that in Legendary, in Halo 2 with the co-op, there's no checkpoints. I think there is checkpoints, but what the problem is when your partner dies, you die too, and then you go back to the last checkpoint. There's no spawning.
Right. And if it's single player, there's no checkpoints at all. If you die, you go back.
Yeah, you just go back to
the beginning.
Yeah.
So
that has to be hell on earth.
That was just anti-fun.
In Halo 2.
That was anti-fun, so we decided to forego doing Legendary, and we just stuck to heroic. And
I think we would still be trying to beat it right now if we hadn't.
We would just give up on the podcast altogether at that point. Just never done.
More than likely.
Yeah. So we proceeded on heroic, which was really fun. It was just the same rules. You respawned on your buddy after a while, and and they took out the assault rifle in favor of dual wielding. You have a little SMG now that you can hold two. I guess that's supposed to replace the assault rifle, but even though you didn't like it, I like the assault rifle, and I missed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the SMGs is kind of a bit of a close up spray and pray type gun. If they're close up, it's okay. If they're not, it's kind of useless. But one thing I really liked about Halo 2, and I think I mentioned to you last time we talked, is I really like the pistol in Halo 2. It does no damage, but it's really fun to play with, and they basically don't let you play with it because
that's very unique to yourself. I do not like it.
I assume it probably was. Nobody likes it.
I don't know. I don't know if I represent a lot of people, but I thought it was garbage. I don't think there's any point at all for the pistol to be in Halo 2.
I just think it was super fun to play with. I don't know why. You can just pop off a magazine and
it's really
fast seconds and reload it. But they don't let you. They don't give you any ammo. They hardly ever let you play with it. So it's kind of a useless gun.
In Halo 1, I think the pistol was so overtuned that they wanted you to know that this had been addressed, and they undertuned it this time.
Yeah, they just went back in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, they did. They a little too far. I didn't like that about it. So when you on the first level of Halo 2, you are kind of in corridors again, throwing grenades, figuring out how to melee. They're boarding this craft, and they're coming. It's real reminiscent to the first level of Halo 1. They're attaching boarding crafts to your vessel, and they're coming in, and they make a lot of opportunities where you can throw grenades or just get down and dirty and just try to hose them all down. And by the end of it, you find out that the Covenant's planted a big bomb on the space station, and after you fight through all the Covenant, you get there just in time to defuse the bomb, and then this cuts off probably the most famous quote Halo 2 has to offer is, "I'm giving them back their bomb." I don't know if I quoted that right, but Master Chief kicks it off there. He sends the bomb back into space, and he blows up another cruiser, and then he kicks off the bomb. That sets off the explosion, destroying Covenant cruiser, and then he lands on another Pillar of Autumn-esque ship that is commanded by, what's her name? Miranda Keyes.
Miranda Keyes.
Which is Captain Keyes' daughter from the first game.
From the first Halo. So, and this brings up another point is, with the first Halo, you had some nice voice acting. But with the second Halo, they bring in some actual, actual is the wrong word for it, but they bring in some
heavy hitters.
Some more recognizable names, I should say. Keith David plays the Arbiter. If you don't know who Keith David is, just go to IMDb and look him up. He's been in all kinds of stuff from, he's been done a ton of voiceover work, but he's also done a lot of live action movies like Men at Work or Pitch Black. They brought in Ron Perlman for Lord Hood, who's a human character. Everybody knows who Ron Perlman is. Julie Benz plays Miranda Keyes, who is, among other things, Dexter's wife in the series Dexter on Showtime.
Great voice acting, great cinematic involvement. Anytime the cinematic would come on, it was my favorite part of the game. And that's not to take away from the gameplay that much, but the cinematics in Halo 2 are just so well done, and they're so captivating with the Anniversary Edition's improved graphics that, man, I just want to make this podcast just be a video where we watch the cinematics. That's it. We have a separate one where we just analyze the cinematics. And I think at this point, you go down to Earth. The Covenant's landing on Earth.
Yep.
They're doing something. What are they doing?
You go to the second level. It's called Outskirts, and you basically need to get rid of the Covenant on Earth.
And since we're not really covering level by level, we're just trying to be like an overview. You fight through a bunch of coveys. And they introduce Covenant sniper rifles, the beam rifle. The Jackals are wielding those, and that's a one-shot kill. Sometimes, if you're damaged a little bit and they shoot you, you're dead. And good thing that Wheels on co-op, because that would have probably tilted me a lot. And I remember back in 2004, I may have beat the game on Legendary, and I don't know how I did that. I think maybe it had checkpoints back in the day. I don't Don't fact check me on that because I could be wrong and I'm never wrong. But I think back in the day it had checkpoints. But if you can imagine a legendary, just turning a corner and then a jackal sniping you, and you have to restart the checkpoint over and over again.
Oh, that would be terrible. Yeah, the jackals were bad enough in the first Halo. Yeah, add some one-shot sniper rifles to the mix.
So in Halo 1, the second level was a big open area where you could kind of look around and explore a little bit. And then Halo 2, you're in the city streets, and I feel boxed in. I don't like it.
Mm-hmm. It's probably the way what they were thinking, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just to try and box you in like that.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it. There's at one point you get up on a building, you have to hold it for a little bit. There seemed to be a lot of holding in this game, holding positions and stuff.
I think that may have been maybe in the library in Halo 1. They would send like waves of flood at you, and you would have to hold a position there. But this becomes a regular scenario where you have to stop and you have to hold a position, and it's okay. There's another thing later that I'll mention that's worse. So you blaze through the streets and you finally I think you beat this level. I think the third level is where they introduce the vehicles. So you're getting on warthogs or you're getting in a tank and you're going down the streets and fighting through the Covenant vehicles. And they added another mechanic that we could talk about since we're on vehicles was hijacking.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you feel about?
Which is so much fun to do, especially multiplayer. But we're not.
So what is that, Chris?
Hijacking?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so if there's a Covenant coming at you, you can basically hit a button and jump on the side of it, and you punch them out, and you take over the vehicle. Right. And then you can use their own vehicles against them.
Right. Yeah. You just kick them out. Like if they're charging you in a ghost, you just kick them out, and then now you're riding the ghost if they're slow enough and they don't run you over.
Yeah. I found out Travis was much better at this than I was.
Oh no! Oh man, just didn't know what button to press.
That's probably that makes you better at it than me.
So you go through the streets, you fight more Covenant, and I don't feel like the story really builds into the point to where you're up on a skyscraper and a big spider tank shoots a big laser and destroys another of one of the human tanks, and this thing is huge. It looks like a big Power Rangers Zord. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like a big old walking spider, Wild Wild West with Will Smith type creature.
You know what I'm talking about? A reference. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Walking through the streets and screwing stuff up. So you got to climb up on the top of these skyscrapers, and finally you get a chance to jump on it and beat the Covenant that's on board. And I really appreciated that part of it. It was very immersive, and I liked it a lot, being able to take that thing down. So after you destroy Scarab, the Covenant's feeling like they're losing. So the main ship, who's in the Earth's atmosphere, like blasts off. And you're trying to rush and get it on your own Pillar of Autumn-esque ship commanded by, what's her name? Keyes.
Miranda Keyes?
Yeah, you get on there, and then slip space rupture happens, and which basically means they're going into light speed, and they zoom through the portal, and you're right on their tail, and you go through the portal too. And then that's when it goes to the little twist. And take it away, Chris.
And the twist it's a really interesting one. I don't remember playing a game like this up to this point where you stop playing the main character and you jump into playing another character, which you learn about in the first level, which is the Arbiter. So you become an elite. You're playing a Covenant character, doing the bidding of the bad guys. And this is really, story-wise, also, you talked about fleshing out the bad guys story, Travis. This is also where you really learn that the bad guys, in their minds, through the course of playing as the Arbiter, in their minds, they're not the bad guys.
Right. They refer to the Master Chief as the demon, and they have their own goal, which is called the Great Journey, which is if they can activate, or the Prophet, or the leaders of the Covenant, they believe if they activate the Halo rings, that will just send them to, I don't know, freaking Valhalla or wherever the great journey takes you. But
yeah, they're Norsemen.
Yeah, they're well, they're not as cool as Norsemen, but they're emphasized by religion, and that's their goal. They think if they activate the halos, then it will propel them into the great journey where all their dreams will be met, or whatever.
So they're in their minds, they're on a justified mission.
Oh yeah, and we're the bad guys.
And
That's hating
and
them.
the humans are the bad guys, and that's basically where we're at. And then we start playing as the arbiter, and on going on missions that the prophet is sending them on. So, and to me, this is also where the gameplay really kind of takes a turn. Also, Travis, it's not as fun because one thing, you start off with Covenant guns. You play mostly with Covenant guns.
Yeah.
To me, it's just not as fun.
Instead of the oorah Marines beside you, you got little grunts and other elites beside you, and yeah, it's not that good. But, and I didn't mention this before, you have a laser sword.
There's a redeeming factor.
That's another feature. Another featured gun in Halo 2 is a laser sword. You can, or the beam sword. It's not laser sword.
A laser sword sounds right. Lightsaber.
Star Wars.
It's a lightsaber, I believe.
Anyways, the swords the elites use, I'm gonna call it the beam sword. Anyways, you put it on a guy, your reticle goes red, and you do a big thrust. It one hits about almost everything, especially in multiplayer. It's one hit, no doubt. But yeah, you're playing as the arbiter, and it gives you another little mechanic that the Master Chief can't do is you cloak for like 5 seconds, and then it goes away. But yeah, like you were saying, the Covenant weapons are just never the most fun.
Now, the cloaking was also something that you took advantage of a lot more than I did. My style of play is more just run, and if I have to, duck behind something, run up to them and shoot them. You're more of a stealthy guy. You use all the tools at your disposal, I guess.
Yeah,
which is probably a better way to play, if I'm going to be honest.
There's no better. It's just you're running gun, brute force type of guy. You kill each, no one's behind you. You're killing each one at a time as you go forward, and I can use the cloak. I like to slip behind them, get those one-hit backstabs in Halo that you always have, and there's a little bit of content I could skip that I didn't really feel like fighting these guys. I can just cloak past them, and then I would leave you behind, but that's okay. Let me think. Oh yeah, the mission that the prophets have sent the Arbiter on is to find these heretics. Evidently, there's a group of elites or group of Covenant that are going against the religious great journey, and we got to stop them from spreading the anti-gospel.
Yep.
And you fight through this this huge structure. I think it's through the course of like 2 levels. You jump in some banshees, you fly around. Arbiter's mission is find these heretics. You find the heretic leader finally, and also another character that is with him. And it's the 343 Guilty Spark from the Halo 1. He survived as well.
And the Covenant refer to him a lot as Oracle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they call
they view him as a completely different. Yeah, they view him as a different kind of character than the humans do.
Which makes sense for his character because he knows everything about the Halo structure. So if the Halo is their big religious symbol, then the one that would know everything about it, being called the Oracle, that makes sense. And I like how the Covenant has a religious name for everything. Like even Master Chief is a demon, right?
Yeah.
And so evidently the Oracle, aka Guilty Spark, has told these elites that are being called the heretics, which is another religious thing, that the Halo isn't a religious thing at all. He's told them about the flood, which you fight in this level, by the way. The flood comes out of the cracks or wherever, so yeah, they're alive too.
Yeah, I remember us playing that, and that was the room where we kind of got stuck in for a little bit, kind of wondering what to do, because once you kill everything, you have to run back into a room and then wait for that door behind you to close, and you're in kind of like another room, and that door has to close before the next one will open when you run up to it. It was kind of a clunky bit of gameplay, I thought.
I feel like it wasn't the only clunky part either. And they had these, this was kind of different than Halo 1. You would have to kill a certain amount of guys to trigger an event. Like your Covenant allies had to get all the way here, and that would start a dialogue with the heretic leader. And you didn't really see that in Halo 1. The only things like that that happened in Halo 1 was the cutscenes. So you would get to a point, and then it would play a cinematic, and then it would end. You would be back into fight mode. So that
Yeah.
was a little jarring. I don't think they perfected that at all. Didn't
Yeah,
like
it took
the
us.
end game
It
dialogue.
definitely took me out of the game for a second. When
Mhm.
you get, and that's a lot of times when I play games and I get to a point like that where it's not super clear what you're supposed to do, and it's not a puzzle board. So you're not supposed to be solving a puzzle. You're supposed to be just running through that door, but it's not super clear where you're supposed to go. It gets a little takes you out of the immersion of the game, I think, a little bit. And that's what happened with this particular level for me.
Exactly. And so wrapping up this Arbiter journey, Oracle basically spills the beans to you, and the heretics like, yo, Arbiter, this dude's right. The prophets are leading the Covenant to ruin, and you kill him because you're still kind of influenced by the brutes show up. They take the guilty spark with them, and you know kind of at the point where the brutes acknowledge you a little bit, but not really. They're kind of a-holes. I don't know if you get the theme, but the brutes aren't nice.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I think it flashes back to the chief.
yeah. You go back to the chief at this point.
So you proceed through the portal, chasing after the prophet of regret, and guess what? There's a halo, another
Another one? Oh,
halo,
man.
another one. And then if
And
you're playing
and
this for the first time, you're like, what?
and
It's not called
if you're
halos.
yeah, exactly, and if you're new at this point to what Halo is, each Halo is a weapon, and
Hmm.
its sole purpose is to kill out the Flood, which we started fighting on the last level. And the Flood is this parasitic species that just lives to take over other species and reproduce, essentially. And the Halo kills everything in the galaxy in order to prevent the Flood from having any food and being able to populate the galaxy. But there's another one now.
Yeah.
I thought we destroyed one
Yeah, it's not just a
already.
weapon; it's a living world. It's
Oh yeah.
if you can imagine like a slice of a Dorian sphere, if anybody any sci-fi fans out there, it's a ring that's populated with terrain, mountains, and then these weird structures that were built by the people who made them,
Forerunners?
called the Forerunners. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and we find out more about them later in the series. But yeah, Covenant's there. They're doing something. We're gonna get them. We're gonna land on that ring, and we're gonna shoot them. And you do, and you come down in this crazy drop pod, and you got a rocket launcher, and then you start fighting the Covenant. They're down there, you shooting rockets at drop ships, and oh yeah, let's mention that there's a new little drop ship in Halo 2 called the Phantom.
Mm-hmm.
I think it looks cool. I like it better.
Yeah, it's not bad, and you can shoot the guns off of them, so you're not exactly defenseless against them. But
Mhm.
this also, and this kind of, I really need to point this out at some point, Travis. In the first level, we're introduced to a new game mechanic in Halo. It's called waiting.
Yeah,
In the
I
first
was.
level, I think there's a part where you're going down an elevator, and
Oh
we were
yeah,
actually just playing this yesterday, and we got to the bottom, and you said, "Why did we have to wait 30 seconds to get to
yeah.
the bottom of this elevator that was going achingly slow?"
I was actually waiting for this level, and it's Delta Halo for anybody that's
Hmm.
wondering what level we're talking about. But I was waiting for this level because it has the worst waiting. But yeah, there's a lot of waiting, and actually in that first level, we didn't mention that there's a new Covenant other than the brutes called drones. They're little fly guys, little mosquito-like,
Yep,
little green dudes that fly around. They're okay. They're actually pretty annoying. I don't like them. Hard to shoot.
annoying. They're I don't like them because they're annoying, and they're only annoying because they're not hard to kill, but there's so many of them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they're kind of annoying in a good way. They're challenging.
I'll give you that. So yeah, back on Delta Halo, you fight through that, and you fight through all the Covenant, blah blah blah. Same old story. It's pretty. It's fun. It's one of the better levels, I think. You get to the point where you're chasing the Prophet of Regret, and you get to a ferry, like not like a Zelda ferry, but like a floating platform that's going to take you across the water to another structure where the prophet of regret is. Okay, this is where it snapped in my mind that there's a routine in this game, is the waiting. And man, Halo 2 is about waiting. That's what the game's about. And I was not frustrated with this my first round with Halo 2 campaign, and maybe it was because I was such in a rush to beat Halo 2 so I can get on Xbox Live. But this time around, where I'm just really analyzing the campaign, oh man, it sucks. It really just blows goats for pesos. It's really bad.
It's there's so much waiting on there, and it's not just like on one or two levels. It's on multiple levels.
Mhm.
Where you're sitting on there's a you're just sitting there and you're waiting for something to happen because you're on a platform and you're moving to get from one point to another, and it just goes so achingly slow. I
Mhm.
kind of compare it to Knights of the Old Republic when you're in underwater in that big water. I guess you played that before, Travis.
I have.
You're in a big water suit and you can only creep along, and it takes forever to get through this part. That's kind of what it reminds me of.
That's
Like
good. That's a good
you use the
metaphor.
word you used the word jarring earlier.
Mhm.
When you're fighting and fighting and fighting, and then you sitting there waiting with some elevator music playing in the background for a couple minutes, it's not good.
Yeah, it is jarring, and I guess I like how you mentioned the water level on KOTOR. What about the water level on Mario? No, there's a reason nobody likes those levels on Mario's, because you're going a lot slower and you can't jump anymore, you can't run anymore. That's
You
you know,
don't like the water level on Super Mario Brothers, like the original
no one
Mario.
likes the water levels on Super Mario.
I like the water Marios on Super Mario.
Okay, well, or
Maybe,
that'll be one of the games we review, Mario.
maybe, oh,
Co-op.
maybe it's all nostalgia or something like that. I don't know.
No one likes those, Chris. Come on. Comment in the
Okay.
doobly doo if you like the water levels.
Yeah, call in. Let us know.
Comment, I said. Comment. This will be, on YouTube.
Yeah.
Anyways, lots of waiting, and I cannot. There's a reason why I want us to talk for 5 minutes just about the waiting. It sucked. It kind of ruined the game for me, honestly.
Yeah, it made me wonder if that wasn't, after learning the story of the making of the game and all the delays, not the delays, but the things that were cut out and the changes they had to make because they were up against the deadline. It made me wonder if maybe that was part of it. It just wasn't as polished
Maybe.
as it could have been.
Yeah, maybe they had to put things that delayed your time and made it last longer is because they couldn't put in the actual content that they had planned to, and that was just kind of like a cheap maneuver to make the level, or to make it seem like you're playing the game longer.
And I shouldn't. I should say I don't think it in no way destroys Halo 2 for me. I still think it's a fun game, but
Oh
it definitely isn't as good as it could have been. Maybe.
yeah, no, and I was wanting to wait until the end to talk about this, but Halo 1 had a formula, and I watched this a long time ago. It was an interview with Bungie's. Oh, I know what it was on. If you got the Halo Collector's Edition or something, it give you like a making of the game, like behind the scenes with Bungie. And one of the quotes from that DVD, if anyone knows what those still are, was
Just people our age, Travis.
yeah, one of the formulas was 20 seconds of fun. So what this developer was talking about is that we believe that if you can master 20 seconds of fun and then you just put it in there over and over and over again, right? So if you think about it, Halo 1 had a lot of that. It had these groups of enemies, and it keeps putting you in situations where you're like, oh, now I got to shoot these guys. Now I got to shoot these guys. Just the 20 seconds of fun over and over and over again. It's a great formula. Halo 2, I don't believe followed that. They would give you the 20 seconds of fun, but then they would give you like a minute of waiting on dialogue to happen, waiting on a platform, waiting on the elevator to get down to the bottom, waiting on the ferry to come to you, and you're not running. One of the things in Halo is you're running after the enemies. No one wants to just sit there and wait for the platform to just slowly take you over to where you don't even care if you're going anymore because it took so long. And I digress. That's the end of the waiting.
No, I think that's an important thing to mention. But for sure. But going back to the story, it might be a couple levels later, but you also, and we alluded to this character in the previous episode, Travis. You kind of learn what's
What?
behind the flood.
Yeah. But first, Chris, we have to talk about one more thing that's on that Delta Halo-esque level is fighting the Prophet of Regret.
Oh, is that the level? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you use the hijacking mechanic on his little floaty chairs that I mentioned, and you get to punch him in the face. That's the best part of the whole game. It's just punching him in the face, man. You punch him to death.
Yeah, I think we should devote at least a good 5 seconds of the podcast to just cutting away from us and just cutting to Master Chief punching the Prophet.
And now.
Welcome back. I hope that was fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's fun to play.
You guys liked it as much as I did. After that, you the Covenant start glassing the surface, which is basically where they turn the surface to glass with a big beam, and you jump off that structure and you float in the water, and some mysterious little tentacle wraps around you and pulls you in, and then it cuts back to the Arbiter for a few levels, and then you start hating the game again after.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
That's part of the game. You get to punch the Prophet in the face, and it goes back to the Arbiter, and you're holding the carbine like, I don't want this. I want the battle rifle. And then you go through a big long level where you got to wait on platforms fighting the flood again, and it sucks. Whatever level this is called, I don't even know. Here, I'll look.
Is this the same level where you're going on that? You're going up the elevator to like another level, and then there's a flood coming down every now and then, and
the Sentinels come out and shoot as well. I don't know. Maybe it's called stinking Sacred. Sacred Icon. You're the Arbiter, and you're looking for the Index, like the Master Chief did in the library. And at the end of that level, guess what? Tartarus, the Brute leader, shows up. Takes Miranda Keyes is there, and Johnson's there. He basically takes them and the Index too, and then kicks the Arbiter off of a cliff.
Yeah, they need Miranda Keyes because
great storytelling, by the way. These cinematics are the best, but
absolutely. And they need Miranda Keyes because they need a human to activate the Halo, right?
Right.
Because the Covenant species can't do it.
Exactly. And so the Arbiter got kicked into a off of a cliff. It was really like off of the structure into a void of darkness. He's fallen down. The Master Chief fell down into the ocean. A mysterious tentacle grabbed him, and it cuts to the Arbiter being wrapped up by the same mysterious tentacle, and they're being held together. They look at each other. He goes, "Demon," and Master Chief's like, I'd rather not piss this thing off, and it pans to what you were talking about earlier, and go ahead and take it away. Then behind the flood.
Right, so you learn what's behind the flood now, and it's a character called Gravemind. And it's just a big, in the original Halo 2, before they remastered it, it looks like a big Venus flytrap.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully they remastered it and made him look somewhat cooler, I guess. Yeah. He was an alright, good, better looking character now, but he's essentially... he's the mind that controls all the flood. He's like a character. Trying to think of a good analogy in a different series or something, but essentially, if you kill the Gravemind, I guess the flood are going to be over with, right?
I don't know, because in the first Halo, when you were talking about it, the big massive pus and crappy stuff that Captain Keyes was in before you got his permissions to get on the Pillar of Autumn, he was being turned into a proto Gravemind. We had to look that up to find out. So I don't know if there could be several Graveminds or what. I don't know what proto means, but there's that.
But he's the big bad of the flood, though.
Yep,
it's safe to say.
Yep. And so it seems like maybe the flood are being controlled by him, like they're kind of have a hive mind. And
hive mind. That's I was trying to think of that term. I was trying to think of that term, but couldn't do it.
There you go, man. And
so essentially, what that leads you to is A really great scene though,
Mm.
where you
Mhm.
realize that the prophets, I guess, are bad guys, right?
Yeah.
The Gravemind tells you some things of that nature,
And
and
he's convincing the arbiter of this. And you've spent a lot of time with the arbiter during this game. Maybe too much time. I'd say 50%, if not 60% of the game, you're the arbiter. And the Gravemind is convincing him of the prophet's folly. He's basically like even like in the grasp of the Gravemind, he's not totally convinced yet. And Master Chief, he knows. He's like, yeah, yeah, dude. So the Gravemind doesn't want Halo to fire off because it's going to kill him. So he's gonna send Master Chief to one likely place. He's gonna send the Arbiter to another likely place to stop it, and teleports him away. And one of the best quotes ever was, let me think. Fate brought us together as foes, but this ring will make us brothers. So I thought that was a good quote. Love the one-liners in this series altogether. Halo 2 has a ton of great one-liners. The Arbiter, Master Chief, and the Gravemind, they all have good dialogue.
right,
Yep. So they send the chief right at another prophet, right? And they send the Arbiter, I think, to the correct location where the brutes are trying to set off the Halo ring. The level that you play as Master Chief at the end is really good. I think it's great, and it has that kick-ass song by Breaking Benjamin. I don't know if anybody knows that "Blow Me Away," but man, the music in all these games are fantastic. I cannot emphasize that enough. The music is just great in all of these, and yeah. So you fight through the Covenant. The the brutes are there. You kill a bunch. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, you got to fight through a bunch of brutes. So near the end of the Master Chief level, after the awesome music, you get to a point where one of the prophets, the prophets are sitting there. It's a little cinematic. There's two prophets and the chieftains there, and the flood's crashing in, and one of those little drone guys gets on one of the prophet's neck and starts biting him, and then the other prophet, I think it's the prophet of truth, he's like, "Nah, leave him. He's an a-hole." And so yeah, one of the little prophet guys is being consumed by the flood once Master Chief gets there, and yeah, the is this the scene where they're going onto another ship, a Forerunner ship, and they're going to be blasting off back to Earth, I believe, and Cortana finds out. They're like, "Chief, you got to get on that ship," and then also a freaking pelican on fire comes flying in and explodes, and flood starts pouring out of it, and you're like, "Oh God, the flood's learning." And so now you got to try to get on this Forerunner craft and try to get back and protect Earth in time. And oh, and you have to leave Cortana behind in order because she said that she was gonna detonate the I keep calling it the Pillar of Autumn esque ship that Miranda Keys drove or piloted, and they were going to detonate it just like Halo One and destroy the second Halo. And then it basically cuts off with um, Master Chief going into the Forerunner ship alone, and it cuts back to the Arbiter, where he is going to the Halo control room, trying to stop Tartarus, who is taking Miranda Keys, who's going to activate the Halo ring. And yeah, he fights through a bunch of brutes. He finds out the brutes have murdered the elites at this point. They're because the elites were the top dogs under the prophets, and now the brutes are. So the brutes just been purging all the elites. Now it's basically like the elites have just broken off from the covenant altogether, and like everything the Gravemind is saying, everything that the heretics was saying, is just making sense to the arbiter at this point. He's now against the covenant. and they have a big battle at the end.
Yeah, and once the battle's over, that's kind of it.
you have a huge. This is a different thing in Halo. You have a boss battle with the brute chieftain, where he's like he's got the big hammer and he's powered up and he's trying to hit you with it. And you just have to shoot him a million times. Yeah, yeah. You had to jump down and you could boost back up, and it was really good. And oh yeah, and they before that, he activates the ring. He takes Miranda's hand, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of the story. If you could just take a human's hand and force them to put the index in, that's kind of weird. Anyways, um, so the whole time you're in this boss battle, the Halo is activating. It's about to shoot the big blast. It's going to end the universe, and you kill Tartarus, and Miranda snatches the index out of it and then stops the explosion just in time. Just that's Dustin Echo's cousin is just in time. hmm I will give Halo 1 a. I don't like to give anything a 10 out of 10. I usually would just give Halo 9 out of 10. I give Halo 1 a 10 out of 10. Halo 1, perfect. And well, other than the pistol, but that doesn't really affect the campaign that much. Halo 2, I'll give it a 10 out of 10. In cinematics and dialogue and storytelling and lore building, I'll give that a 10 out of 10. Gameplay, 6 out of 10. That's still, I don't know, that's still like a D or a C. I'll say I'll give it a C if we're going on a letter grade.
Yeah, I think maybe I would go a little bit higher and give it a 7. And I would not hesitate to give the first Halo a 10 out of 10. Life's too short not to give things perfect rating. Travis, give it a 10. Don't even think about it. Just give it a 10.
Yeah.
Halo 2, though, I would think, yeah, a 7. There was a lot of, like we talked about earlier, there was just a lot of things that took you out of the game that made it not as fun as it should have been.
Absolutely. The combat and just some of the decisions that they made were really good. Like the hijacking was awesome. Some of the guns, like we didn't even mention the brute shot or the brute plasma rifle. The beam sword, they added that. Just so many different things that were really good. But then as far as the campaign, and that's what we're reviewing. As far as the campaign goes, it was jarring. They added different vehicles. I want to mention those. They added like this weird Covenant Warthog. That was okay. Was that Halo 2? Yeah, I think so.
Oh, and I don't remember what it was called. I don't remember what it was called.
Spectre, maybe?
Spectre, I think is what it's called. Yeah,
you had Ghost and Spectre.
Yeah, it wasn't
great. It was okay. You had the Wraith. I like how all those are named after ghosts. That's cool. Anyways.
Yeah, the Phantom.
You're right. Oh, yeah. Huh.
Oh, we just figured something out, Travis.
You know what? 10 out of 10. No, for real though, the storytelling and cinematics especially were great, but the combat, something was missing from it. And I'm not saying it's not good. I'm not saying just because I'm giving it a 6 out of 10 that I think that it's not worth playing. Of course, I think it's worth playing.
Oh, it's absolutely worth playing just for the story. I think even if the gameplay was 5 out of 10, it's worth playing just for the story.
Oh yeah, I could watch a YouTube video of all the cinematics right now, and I probably will after this. Well, I appreciate if you made it this far in the podcast. I super appreciate your patience and support of us, and you're awesome. If you have 100%. Anything to tell us, please comment, and we will get back to you on that. I will see you later, Dustin Echoes, my best friend.